Nice to have you on the show. What are you campaigning about on Sunday?
Well, on Sunday at the Piccadilly Theatre there's going to be a grand celebration to counter the effects of Section 28 of the Local Government Act. And on the bill are the Pet Shop Boys and Dame Judi Dench and Vanessa Redgrave and Alan Bates and me and a lot of others.
I think probably many people are still fairly confused about Section 28. What's your objection to it?
Well, it's now law, and the law starts off by saying that a local authority shall not intentionally promote homosexuality. I don't approve of this because, A, I don't think sexuality of any sort can be promoted. I don't think you can convert anyone to heterosexuality or to homosexuality. And therefore I think probably the wording of the law, vague as it is, might well be interpreted as meaning that anyone who so much as puts on a play about homosexuality or paints a painting like David Hockney might or Michelangelo might have done or makes a movie about homosexuals might fall foul of this law. And so I see it from that point of view as a creeping censorship.
This, I think it came into the full view, although we saw nothing, Section 28, during a famous newscast a couple of weeks ago when Nicholas Witchell sat on two women simultaneously.
Yes.
And you could just hear muffled shouts.
Well, I think probably
do you think that helped your protest or what?
It's difficult for me, who has access to the media, thanks to you, to perhaps quite understand the frustration of people who, like me, are opposed to Section 28, who don't have access to the media. And I think those women were in the gallant tradition of other women campaigners, suffragettes who disrupted Derby Day, or indeed the Greenham Common women who did so much to pave the way for President Reagan's magnificent achievement this week. And I think, in retrospect, probably those lesbians in the newsroom will have been seen to fight, sticking up for what they believed in, and hopefully getting rid of this law.
Many QCs, many people who know a great deal more than I do about it, hold that really there's not much point protesting about this because, in fact, it's a law that can't work, that it would have to be proven in court that local authority councillors, for instance, were actually encouraging people to be homosexuals, and it would have to be shown that they had, in fact, made more homosexuals in their neighbourhood, and that would be impossible.
Yes, indeed it would.
So, I mean, why worry yourself excessively over something that, in most people's opinion, is not going to work anyway?
Well, I'm very glad that lawyers, and indeed the government, have come round to the point of view of people who've all along pointed out that the law was a nonsense. Indeed, there's a government directive gone out to schools specifically telling teachers that they need pay no attention to this law whatsoever because they must be ruled by their governors and not by their local authorities. But it's worse than just the law itself. It's the feeling that it spreads through a society which is made up of minorities of all sorts, whether they're blacks or Greeks or Jews or homosexuals. And all these minorities belong to the same society. It's the differences in our society which make it wonderful. And for a government to begin to pick out one of those minorities and suggest that they are in some way inferior, to spread suspicion and therefore fear, I think is a dangerous thing for the community as a whole. So I will go on fighting this law until it's actually repealed.
I think what it's saying is that you can understand that parents could be worried about what some areas or elements of the press have called gay propaganda.
One mustn't believe what one reads in the press entirely.
No, you don't have to tell me that.
No, I would be dead against any teacher who suggested to a child that he or she should dabble in homosexuality because it would be interesting. I would be equally against a teacher teaching a young child to dabble in heterosexuality for the same reasons. No, what a teacher should be explaining is that people are different, adults are different from one another, and just because they were brought up by a mother and father, they may well discover that there are some people in society who are never going to be mothers and fathers, and explain why, and understand that those people are perfectly normal members of the community whose sexuality is God-given. It's not something you can't catch heterosexuality, you can't teach it, nor can you catch or teach homosexuality.
You see, but when they see a book called, like, for instance, Jenny Lives with Eric and Martin,
yes,
you can understand a parent saying, well,
yes,
this is being taught to our children.
What I can understand is that book must be seen in the context of which it was written. It's a little story about a girl being brought up by her father, who is separated from his wife and is now living with a male lover. And this is a little book for children, and there are people in Britain being brought up in that situation who don't have books which reflect their own situation, which don't explain some of the problems that they will meet in their family life. It's not a book to be readily available for all children or to persuade them that their own mothers and fathers should be replaced by somebody else of the opposite sex. That isn't part of the point at all. And you must see these very interesting educative books in the context of which they're meant to be read and meant to be written.
So how did you get involved in the campaigning? Because you suddenly come forward, as it were, or been projected. Was it you? Did you suddenly decide you wanted to?
I mean, you know, I've been gay all my life. It's just that I haven't ever come on a chat show and said it. I've now felt the need to, because the government, with this new law, has brought my private sexuality into the public arena by having a law about it. And so I felt I had to oppose it, not just as an actor who feared censorship, but as a gay man who didn't like the climate of opinion that was being encouraged through this law.
Have you had any antipathetic reaction? Since you've, as it were, come out and said?
So minor that I can disregard it. On the contrary, I've had letters, and I meet people in the streets, and as I'm going around the country, people who, like myself, have just had enough and in middle age have decided that they must come out and declare themselves and feel, as I do, very, very happy about it, and seem to have the respect rather than the fear or suspicion of other people.